Hello, good to see you this afternoon, or you're seeing me, whichever. My name's Julia Lohrman Audlehelm. I grew up in the Quad Cities, where I was strongly influenced by my mother's devotion to artwork and creative outlets, and some very fine teachers through the school system there. When I was a kid, my mom used to sit with the drawing board right in her lap so no one could see what she was doing. I wasn't real out with what I liked doing. I started going to the University of Iowa in the 70s, and one of the small projects that I worked on was the Hawks Are Clicking badge, homecoming badge for 1976. That one particularly, you can see it featured here in this picture. I'm very proud that one of the things that I did way back then, as small as it was, is part of a collection for the University of Iowa. I started off pursuing artwork at the university, but so many teachers in the art department said I needed to loosen up. So I loosened up by going into another field, actually, just to be able to, I needed to have a job, a career when I finished doing that. When we moved to Des Moines from the University of Iowa area here, we moved to Des Moines. I had a realtor friend who contacted me and said, hey, you like to draw. Would you like to sketch a house that I just sold? And he would give the drawing to the people there. That's what kind of got me started. And that was almost 40 years ago. What you're seeing right here, and the very first slide, was 4 doors. This is my largest piece ever. This is in colored pencil and ink, 4 different separate drawings with one stream of water going through them, each drawing representing a different season of the year. This is for a True Value store in Southern Iowa that wanted to be known as the store for all seasons. So they asked me if I would do this particular almost mural. These pieces started off actually as, they were about 11 by 14 drawings. And I laid them side by side. And then once they had them in their hands, they went to a sign printer and they went to these garage doors. Pretty amazing to me. This is one of the ones that I loved working on. This particular fraternity was celebrating their 100th anniversary. They were, it is in Ames, Iowa right now. Really enjoyed doing that and doing lots of detail to it. The state capital of Iowa, yes, in Des Moines there. A lot of my drawings were in Des Moines. That's where I resided for 25, almost 30 years. And this particular drawing was the cover of a calendar during the 90s. I swore off doing calendars after that particular venture. That was really a toughie. But this one is one of the few gold domed capitals in our whole country. Very happy with that one. This one touched me so tremendously. The staff of Senator Tom Harkin asked me, apparently they are asked frequently to donate something to different organizations for fundraising. Tom Harkin wanted an Iowa artist to represent the United States Capitol, and he wanted to be able to give a drawing to visitors or to people who worked on different ideas for him. And so these prints were available only through him. And I was very, very honored to be a part of that project for sure. This one was one of my early capital drawings of the Capitol in Des Moines of the state of Iowa. And I guess I should have started off by this whole conversation saying how very touched I am to be asked to be doing this videotaping for you right now, because it's an exciting idea what's happening in Iowa City with artists and recognizing the people that we have in our own neighborhood. Anyway, this particular drawing was one that, as I look at it now, I think, God, I mean, I had the perspective right, but I worked directly with what I saw rather than what is. If I could do that all over again, I would straighten that building out, but it's kind of got a neat perspective as it looks up the hill at it like that. Court Avenue in Des Moines, at one end of it is the Capitol, the other end is the courthouse. And I had the opportunity to draw that in a couple of different angles and versions. Along with, this is one of the other angles and versions of it. I kind of challenged myself on this one to draw this old part of Des Moines. It had spaghetti works in it. It had this building that was slowly being converted into something else right now. Well, I did this, and I actually did, like, I think I did 120 prints of this. I thought, I don't even know 120 people, let alone 120 who would like to be able to have my artwork showing. Anyway, the week after I completed this, the building in the foreground on the one side there burned down to the ground. The newspaper contacted me and asked if they could use my drawing as a before, and they would show the after with the fire taking the whole building away. The photographer for the Des Moines Register stood where he thought I was standing, and he said, I can't get the Capitol in there. And I said, that's because it's the power of the pen. You can move things around and place them for the perspective, for what you want to be conveyed. And that's what I ended up doing. So I was kind of, you can do a lot of, pen is not forgiving, but you can move things to make them be the way you want them to be. Court Avenue Brew Pub. This particular building used to be a hat factory back at the turn of the century and somewhere. This particular place turned into a brewing place, a brewery, and they used my drawing as coasters, as bottles, as drinking mugs. As far as my teenage kids at the time decided that that was the first thing that I did that was really cool, was to be on a beer stein. Along with Polk County Courthouse, which is at the end of Court Avenue, that drawing was used for several different things, along with Christmas cards, note cards, event programs, and exciting. The University of Iowa President's President's Office asked me to draw this just a couple of years ago when the house was celebrating its 100th anniversary. I was thrilled to be doing that one. That just, I think that's over on Church Street, and something that maybe many of you can get over and compare and see. They used that particular drawing to celebrate their anniversary at the time. The original of it is in the entryway as you come into the place itself. This one is by far my most personally, that I feel personally attached to and achieved great detail with. The Ameris Company was in Des Moines. They represented about 5 different companies, including Iowa Realty. They asked me to portray somehow all of the places that they worked during the floods of 1993, in which they wanted to show every community coming together to be stronger. So I selected photos. I went around the state, drove around to these different locations, and went to Cedar Rapids, Rock Island, Des Moines, Grinnell, Valley Junction in West Des Moines, and East Village in Davenport. All the locations that they asked me to somehow portray, and that's what I did. I came up with this particular view of the whole thing, and people swear that they actually walked down that street when what it was me putting the buildings together side by side. So it did look like all the communities were coming together. What was particularly challenging with this was I had to imagine the same size person going into each door and size those photos. Yes, I do work from photos or sitting there or standing there. They didn't send me to Washington, D.C. for Senator Harkin's one, though. They sent me photos, darn it. Anyway, there's the representation of the communities that were affected by the flood and helped out. Two of my favorite drawings, the one I just was describing, which was called Recovering Heartland, and the Bettendorf Bridge that goes from Bettendorf into Rock Island, Moline area in the Quad Cities. That's now considered the old bridge. That is where I grew up, and literally used to escape from anything I needed to escape from as a young girl, to go underneath those bridges and scream my head off if I wanted to. The Bettendorf Bridge is now, it's older than me. So they're putting up a new one. I guess I don't have that option. This particular drawing was really fun to do. This represents 4 different women's organizations that came together at the turn of 1900s. 4 different organizations actually in Iowa that formed Planned Parenthood. Their names are buried in the trees of this drawing. This drawing was the original, this house was the original house in which Planned Parenthood officed and provided services for the vast community. Planned Parenthood has a large book sale every year as their fundraiser. In this drawing, I put a person up in the window reading a book. There's a stack of books in the front of the doorway. And the names of those strong women who put together, who brought together their desire to have good health care for all, their names are in each of those trees. This one is my Kentucky home. My part of my family lived in this home, and a way to celebrate that family, I put the family names in this giant tree that was in the front yard. And then I gave prints of it to each one of the family members, made note cards for the family. What an honor to be in that family, as well as have our names in the branches to the tree. This one had hidden things in it as well. This is a church in Des Moines. This one also a church in Des Moines. Prints of each one of those church drawings have gone out to their members in however they designated to be able to give them, whether it was a fundraising effort, an expansion to a building, or their programs, whichever they chose to do. This one has a nice little feature to it because that front door is over to the one side of the church, but you just can't see it as much. So we did it almost as a little window down in the lower part of it. This one was exciting too. I found out that I could actually draw on a brick. This stone was out in front of this house. The family sold the house many years ago, and I was asked to draw that house on the rock that was in front of it. You know, you can do a lot of things that you never thought you could do. I got into doing a lot of different I'd like to have little pieces of buildings and use them in different sorts of ways. It just was kind of fun. So that lets that. Hoyt Sherman Place is a beautiful old building within Des Moines, used for a lot of theater productions and such now that they have. This is a window from that place. That window, along with several other drawings, were part of the Polk County Sesquicentennial celebration. I was asked to draw something from each one of the 18 communities that made up Polk County, and it was put into an 18-month-long calendar. That was the one that led me to, I swear I'll never do another calendar again. A fraternity fireplace. The Iowa State Bar Association used their drawing for stationery and note cards that were sent out. If you are in the arts, you know that a lot of people tend to come to you and ask for donations. I had this happen a number of times, so I decided I wanted to give to the organizations that I wanted to be a part of and support. The AIDS Project of Central Iowa that was housed in Des Moines, I was a volunteer there for several years, but one of the ways I could uniquely give was through my art and volunteering with that. Whenever someone passed away, a single rose was sent to the funeral, to the family. And so we represented that and then individually colored the rose, whichever color you wish to have it be. This one, obviously a red one, but this was from a note card. Prints were made as well. I have long since admired and loved the beauty of trees. As someone significant in my life said, bare trees speak to me. This one, leaves from my Kentucky home yard, but it was used as a folder that these note cards were put into. That was part of a gift that went out to a corporation in which note cards were given as a seasonal gift and along with that. So those different ones were used. The one down here on the one side of the house, I would like to let you know that particular one, the original homeowners said they really weren't sure that they wanted to have their house used in this way. So I took parts of buildings and put it together in a house that I only imagined I'd like to live in. And that maybe the door belonged to one person down the street and that bay window belonged to another, but together it made a beautiful house. I think I should have majored in architecture. Note cards were made from several drawings. This one was the beginning of the heartaches, the headaches, and the beauty that comes when you just give yourself a little peace and time to give back to the organizations that you cared about. I was asked to help celebrate and raise some money towards this organization, Up With People. They wanted to portray the people who had founded the group. So we came up with this idea. I needed to prove that I could do it, and I did it. I'm not sure where your picture's showing up, but I wanted to show you all of that. This started off on the lower side here as just bare trees going from start. I usually start with a sketch in pencil where I know where I want to go. I refer to photos as I work with this. I had photos of trees that I needed to know were real. So I was portraying a real tree, not just something in my head. Anyway, the photos started off as I got the limb. I also got the names put in and then worked the leaves around the names. So step 1 and then 2 and 3, you can see it building till it got up to the one still on the one side here. The finished product was called the legacy tree. And I was honored to meet the founder of that organization as I presented him with his copy of this. Family and friends, you don't turn away. And those that are your godchildren, you do a lot for if you are asked. And I was welcome to be asked to portray the place where this couple got married in the park outside on a beautiful day. So this particular drawing was then used in the center of a very broad matted picture that the matting guests were asked to sign in, and they this couple has this framed and hanging over their fireplace, showing that all these people were there at the start of their wedding day. And then sometimes you do for your own children what you do for your best friends too. But this one, peacock feathers for my daughter's wedding. And leaves for myself. These are hanging in my home. This is pen and ink and water color. While in Des Moines, I worked with adult and community education, loved working with classes for them and portraying some of the old schools that they had. We dug up old buildings. That's really one of the things I love to do, is to find a very, very old picture of a home and show all that it's going with and some of its beauty. So these were used as the cover and advertisement for their classes. One of the other things I've come to do with pen and ink, this one was done for the Wells Fargo Financial Building in Des Moines. If you look into the reflection of those windows, you could kind of see, maybe if you use your imagination, the skyline of Des Moines, which I've also drawn before. There's the Capitol up there. There's the bridges that kind of go across some of the areas and some of the buildings, although that really doesn't exist because there's other buildings across the street from this, so there's no way it reflects. Some people have collected some of my artwork. This is something in a friend's house. The one on the lower left was from a vacation, or the lowest part of this. We went on a vacation and all of us got to do what we wanted to do. And I got in a little inner tube with my pen and my and drew plein air in the water that particular time, and then presented our friends with a drawing at the end of that vacation. This one is a very special place to these special people. In colored pencil, one of the boardwalk bridges that will go across some of the areas there in Sandwich, Massachusetts. I want to show you now the stages of probably one of the most important ones that I feel I've ever done. This again is a tree, but this particular tree, it actually exists over on the Oakdale campus, Oakdale campus, excuse me. A friend of mine found it and said, "You got to draw this." This particular tree is strong and growing and vital. This tree was used as the example to put 350 names on this drawing of people who had been supporting this particular church. In this drawing, the base of the tree, the roots of the tree, are names of people who money was given in memory of them. And then funds were developed in order to build a new building for this church. And all of those 350 names were in the drawing. This particular drawing was 30 by 40. It was the largest thing I ever did. Starting off again with, you can see just the sketch work there. And then little by little, you keep adding and you keep adding and growing. You have to kind of keep using a lot of ink work to get the depth in the drawing, whether it's crosshatch or scribble type or dotting along with it and getting it to grow. I would add the names along the way and then connect them all with every stage of this. My tools have always been technical pens, a fine point pencil that can easily be erased. Yes, I do use straight angles when needed. T-squares. I turn the picture upside down around as I need to. I walk away from it as I need to. Your eyes, your shoulders get too intense at the whole thing. And the finished product. I was sincerely, deeply honored to have that be hanging at the Unitarian Universalist Society here in our church, in Coralville now. That is one of the framed, that is the framed piece that is hanging in the hallway there. And folks who are wanting to find their name, they can locate that name. I kept I kind of used the names in a grid fashion so that I could keep track of them. It was not in alphabetical order, but I was able to kind of scramble the alphabet, but yet you would know where you were. So there was a guide to go along with this that has all of that. This is Terrace Hill in Des Moines. Pieces of artwork, pieces of doors. There, these were some of my early ones where I chose to just take the drawing and do with it what I could do. I was challenging myself to do each and every little brick, to do each shadow, even to put a bird on the wire that was outside of this window at Terrace Hill. Terrace Hill is the home of the governors of Iowa. This is a rose window. Oh, so much of a challenge to do. That is in Grinnell, Iowa. And an old bridge. This one was really fun to do as well. It was used in a calendar many years ago. But a friend of mine just recently looked at this and said, how do you put breath in there? And I had to reflect on the fact that my son, when he was quite young, looked at my drawings and he said, Mom, you put breath in there. What a compliment. This one, Bare Trees Speak to Me. This is this was a gift that was given to someone who had given us a lot. And it is in pencil. This is a fraternity here in Iowa City. This particular, and the front door to it. This fraternity was one that I took apart their logo, their legend, whatever you call it, and actually put parts of it in the leaves to this. If you were to look at this a little bit closer, you'd see, or if you could get up close to it anyway, you'd eventually find two swords, battle axe and scimitar, that are crossed within the leaves up there. You can find the names of some of the significant people who started this fraternity, as well as the house mothers outside the house mother's window where she lived. So that one was kind of, that was fun and interesting to do. This is a window in Ithaca, New York. For that fraternity, there are their symbols, which is Delta Chi, all buried within the leaf work there. That was an interesting, fun one to do. And that was given as gifts to some of their board members. The drawing of the Capitol in DC, that I mentioned earlier for Senator Tom Harkin. They asked me to draw his hometown. This is the home that he actually grew up in. Inside this brochure is his home, his first school that he went to, and the church that he went to as a child. We packaged the drawing of the Capitol inside this folder that was ready then for framing for individuals. So it was protected as it became a gift. And that again is that magnificent building. I was really trying to be able to put Senator Sanders in there with his mittens on and his crossed legs, but I couldn't quite manage that. I'd like to almost end this great little time with you today by letting you know that Shorts on the East Side, Shorts Burgers, has 9 of my drawings up. They have tremendous reflection in this picture. But if you want to stop in there anytime in the near future, tell them you're there to see the artwork. They will also give you a 20% off discount for coming in. So I think that's pretty cool. I like the way they're supporting local artists as well. I'd kind of like to end this with letting you know one of the things that have just inspired me through the years. As I grew up, somehow when I started, I didn't quite grasp the whole idea of school was hard for me. Reading was extremely hard for me. By the time I got to college, I figured out I had dyslexia. Oh, that's why I didn't get half the stuff. I always kept my grades up because of my art. I could balance out that grade point average as I went through school. I think it wasn't until afterwards that I realized the power was within me always, and I want to keep that. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy working with young people, which I've done many times through the years, and sharing some of that skill that you learn by looking, by seeing, by feeling, by being engaged in the world. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I really want to stick around and answer any questions you might have. If you want to contact me, my Gmail address is right there. Thank you so much for listening.